Appalachia, legends whisper of unseen spirits and shadowy figures. Don't forget to subscribe as we step deep into the misty woods to uncover what many refuse to talk about, the shadow people and spirits of Appalachia. Are they lost or something much darker? Let's take a look.
I really had to just accept the fact that I live on the Appalachian Trail, and that's why weird shit happens outside my house all the time. Me and my husband hearing a voice right outside of our window, and that voice saying, "It's me." And it was like a childlike voice. Nothing on the cameras, nobody outside. And it happened to me again. It's the middle of the night. I'm upstairs, I'm in bed, my windows are open because it's a nice night. I hear children's voices in my backyard. Loud and clear. Giggling, laughing, can't see anything on the cameras. I tell my husband, he can't see anything on the cameras. Now, I'd like to interject the fact that I'm not one of those white people that are going to go and find out what's going on. I'm safe in my house, and I don't give on what's happening outside of it. I just find it very weird that we're hearing these random voices in our backyard, and this is not the first time. And again, little kids are not going to be outside in the backyard in the middle of the night.
In the woods in Appalachia, and it goes completely silent. I'm talking not a cricket, not a frog, not a cicada. You need to get out of there. Here's a little story about what happened to me. So I told you a little bit about my experience with the Hat Man, or Larky, or the Lurker as I called it. It was just a shadow man that I saw many times as a child, and I also told you that I later saw it multiple times in my life, especially when I was older. But there was a time that still makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It was at a really dark time in my life, and I was probably around 19 years old. I was traveling on a back road where there's a railroad track that's known to be haunted as is, and there's some stories behind that. But I pulled over by these railroad tracks with a friend of mine, and I was in a dark time in my life, so I was there to partake in something I probably shouldn't have been. Windows down, middle of the summer, we live in the South. It's, crickets and frogs, and it's just so much of a roar from cicadas that it'll make your ears ring. It's just so loud. As I'm sitting there on the side of this railroad track, I keep looking in my rearview mirror, like I keep seeing something dark, like it's standing right on the center of the railroad tracks, and my brain just can't comprehend what's going on. It's so dark, and the sounds from the summer are so loud that I just keep staring. And as I look in my rearview mirror, I'm like, what is that shadow that's getting taller and taller? And then that feeling hit me, that same feeling I used to get from the shadow man, hat man, Larky, as I call him. The person I was with saw the same thing in the rearview mirror and wanted me to leave, was absolutely freaked out because there should have been nothing there. It's where you cross the track. So it's room enough for a car, a bus, whatever, but there was a dark shadow around 7 foot tall, right dead center, the shape of a ball. By the time we both have seen this, we're paranoid and about to just leave. I decide I'm going to turn my car around and I'm going to shine my lights at this. I turn around, shine my lights, nothing's there. Cut the lights off, the shadow's there again. Both of us had a terrible feeling. I remember that I just wanted out of there. It was a nasty, awful feeling. And I remember something just made me sit there just a second longer. I just had to know what was going on. And suddenly, everything at once went completely silent. Not a cricket, not a frog, not a cicada. Complete and total silence. It was the most eerie thing I've probably ever experienced in my life. And I've experienced some stuff absolutely terrifying. I will not forget it to this day. It is insane. Totally unexplainable, but I've always been told if it gets really quiet in the woods, you need to leave, and that's part of the Appalachian Mountains. But that's just another time that I feel I experienced the Lurker or the Hat Man.
Pro tip number 1, never pick up hitchhikers in the Appalachian Mountains. There's lots of reasons why you shouldn't pick up hitchhikers pretty much anywhere. But in Appalachia, you don't really know what you're picking up. At least that's what happened to this gentleman who had rented a cabin. He was on a mini vacation. And as he was cruising through the mountains, returning home or back to the cabin one night, he seen something off the side of the road. And lucky for us, he took a picture of it. At first glance, it may seem just like a woman standing by the road. But it's not a woman. It never was a woman. And it's something not of this world. On the right side of the picture, you can see the outline of a person. It's gray. She appears to have on maybe like a gray dress. However, he did not stop because once he got closer, it was evident this was not a person. And it's not normal for a person to be out in the wilderness at night in a gown or dress from the 1800s. So remember this the next time you're cruising through Appalachia and you see a hitchhiker, it's probably not.
I don't usually get scared. This night, I was scared. Probably one of the most scared times I've had here. So for whatever reason, I was here alone. Nobody was here, just me at night, all night long. And I had went to bed, had the windows open. As you can see, my room, I'm pretty high up. Nothing's climbing up here. And I could hear something heavy walking back and forth. You know, you hear animals walk by a lot, but on this particular night, it was something heavy, something big, and something pacing. So I was a little bit spooked, but nothing bad. But then the dog started going crazy. She was barking down the hall like the devil himself was in the house. So I'm going out, looking to see what it is. And she starts backing down the hall, fur up, teeth exposed, cowered down to the ground though. And she's backing down the hall, doing that urgent, scared bark, like something is backing her up, backing towards me. And she continues to do that until she runs in the room. So it's about 3 a.m. at this point, and I shut the door behind me. And there's 2 dogs. One is by my side shaking, would not do anything. And the other is then at the door, snout at the bottom of the door, just. So I clearly saw there was nothing there, but they were seeing something. And then I could see in the hall that same pacing going back and forth. I was definitely too scared to leave that night. I don't think I slept a wink. I think me and the dogs sat there and whatever paced for a certain amount of time and then left, and then I could hear something in the woods again. I have no idea what that was that night. I know there was such a heaviness, though. I felt like I could barely breathe. I could barely breathe, whatever it was.
It's about dream science, just to kind of validate my case. It is incredibly rare to dream in black and white. Only about 12% of the population that we know of has ever had a dream in black and white. A good majority of that 12% were part of the first generation of TV when things were still in black and white. And so that is kind of why, because their brain was just kind of jumbling up things from their daily life. Another thing about dreaming in black and white is this can often signify complete emotional detachment from the dream. It also signifies taking an objective stance to the dream. So again, you are detached personally. When you take into account all of those facts about dream science, it kind of just further validates for me that this wasn't something that was happening in my own mind from an experience I had elsewhere. This was a memory that was being shown to me. So in this dream, it was a mother and her daughter. Her daughter's probably like 7-8 years old. So other than the layout of the land, the physical clues that this was probably about like 1800s era, the clothing definitely matched the time frame as well. So I'm watching this young lady and her daughter take a bundle of wash out to the back to hang on to the clothesline. They're hanging up the sheets and whatever, and they're just having fun. They're just having a great time. Then from the front corner of the property comes this man just barreling towards them. Just for another visual piece, there's a lot of wooded area around the property, or at least it was back then. I'm not sure where he came from. Like, there weren't any main roads at this time or anything. He just kind of appeared. The woman sees him over the clothesline and she tells her daughter to run, leave. And just pure fear and terror overcomes her. When they start trying to run away, he just runs harder and faster straight towards them. He captures the mother first and just starts, and he goes after the daughter. Does the same thing, and here's the twist in the dream. Everything is in black and white, but the human red stuff was red. It was the only thing in the whole dream that had any color to it. The sinister thing, other than the events that took place, was I'm watching this from like an eagle eye, bird's eye view the whole time, right? But when he delivers that last blow to the daughter, it's kind of like kneeling on the ground over her, starts to pan in closer to him, almost like if a cinematic camera were to, do a zoom in a scene. He looks up over his shoulder, straight at me, straight into my eyes, just grins. This sinister, evil grin, like he was just so satisfied with what he had done. And I woke up. Just to reiterate, if you missed it the first time around, all of the property records were destroyed in a courthouse fire in the 70s. We have no records of this property, no way to know who lived in it all those years, who built it originally, nothing. And if you've been following along, you'll know that everyone in town refers to our house as the old McAllister house. This has always been something that just completely eludes us. Nobody on the records we do have is named McAllister. And despite everyone saying, oh, the old McAllister house, nobody has ever elaborated on why it's called that or who the McAllister is. I think I'm curious enough to try to do another property record search just to see, but the only things I've ever been able to find are just the blueprints, you know, like property tax records just in recent years post courthouse fire. My brother made a great point. You know, we have no idea who's lived in that house, who's in that house, how many wakes were held in that house, because you have to keep in mind this is deep Appalachia. I mean, that was a very common practice back then. If you don't know what a wake is, just look into it. In a nutshell, bodies are held for like 7 days, like in the home, so family and friends can come. Other weird things about the house, like other strange markers on the property that just kind of don't make sense. It has a basement, right? But you have to go outside to access the basement. Very, very small square of space you have to fit through. Once you open this door, you've got these concrete steps that go down into the basement. I have been down into that basement a handful of times, if even that, because it always just freaked me out so bad as a kid. Even despite my dad having like a little workshop down there that he kind of like makeshifted, you know, and like we'd store like paint and his tools and stuff down there. The one thing that was always strange to me was this whole open portion under that like back end of the house. There's this wall, this like hand-laid brick wall, kind of like halfway through. It's not bricked all the way up, but pretty close. And, you know, we have no idea what's back there. The one thing that freaked me out as a kid, just looking around, kind of exploring a little bit, I just noticed that there was a footprint. And it looked like a child's footprint, maybe just barely about, maybe, you know, the palm of my hand. It was a singular footprint. No date, no name, nothing. Just one singular footprint, almost in the middle of the floor. And then there were other like little concrete walkways around the house out back that, you know, were obviously put there a long time ago, but there is one spot where it was etched into the concrete like an 1800 something date. So this house has a lot of history. Bottom line, we have no way of knowing what has happened there or what hasn't happened there. We have no way of knowing who's been there, been through there. What's worse is we'll never know because the records are gone forever.
So a few weeks ago, this church trip set off to Kentucky to help with a church camp. This was their first time visiting the Appalachian area, and they were super nervous because they had heard the rules, heard experiences, and they were just a little uneasy about the whole thing already. So they arrived at the camp, and it is set on literally the side of a mountain. So they began setting up all the stations for the campers, and they are ahead of the arts and crafts, which happens to be down the side of the hill, kind of off to itself. So they head with their friend who is also helping with the arts and crafts and go to this little, I don't know what you call it, a building. It sounded like it was not doing the best. Like, it was the bare minimum building. Like, there were holes where windows should be and the walls were very questionable. So everything's pretty okay for a second, and then one day they are running late. So the other friend that's helping out with the crafts is like, hey, I'm gonna stay here and hand out name tags. Can you go ahead down to that building by yourself and start setting up? And the follower's like, sure, I honestly would love the peace and quiet. I want to go look at the scenery because this building was on the edge of the woods and they were just mesmerized by the trees. So they get to where they need to be and they're looking at the trees like normal, and they see something that does not belong there. They see a black claw gripping a tree trunk for dear life. But it wasn't just a floating hand. That hand was attached to something. It was attached to a very tall, faceless man wearing a top hat. So they start picking up the pace to finish up what they need to do so they can join the rest of the people back in civilization. As they finish up and are walking back, they can feel breathing on their neck. Just right there. They're fighting this urge to turn around and be like, what is happening? And just keep going. They don't look. As soon as they lock eyes with another group member, it's gone. The feeling, everything. It's just gone. They didn't say anything to anyone at the camp because they didn't want to be judged for what they'd experienced.
In Erwin, Tennessee, and probably many other surrounding areas, Locals have stories about what they call shadow people. Now, these entities are described as being darker than the dark, and they usually present themselves similar to like the shape of a human or the silhouette of a human, and some people describe them as like an unidentified monstrous random shape. But many people have stories about being attacked on their properties when they were just out and about in the dark. Sometimes they will grab you. A lot of times they're seen with eyes. Some of them have light blue eyes. Some people claim red. Some people claim they've seen them with yellow eyes. But usually these beings come in all sizes. Sometimes they're child size, sometimes they're adult sized. There is a man in this town who has a story that he took his trash out late at night and claims that when he was on his way back to his porch, something grabbed his leg so hard that he had to hang on to his porch railing and muscle his way back onto his porch. This thing had lifted his feet completely up off the ground. Now, it seems like any sort of light creates a barrier that they don't want to cross, or that the light makes them really uneasy.
I'll give you a brief synopsis of the Shadow Man, which is related to the Hat Man, but not the same. So shadow people are ghostly entities, but not ghosts. Ghosts tend to be tied to an object, a house, a person, and energy. Shadow men tend to have a little bit more leeway, a little bit more freedom. Like, there are hotspots in the United States and Ireland specifically I've seen where they tend to like vibe and hang out. Shadow man party. They're not consistent. They tend to ebb and flow, come and go, but they're not demonic. Some cultures view shadow men specifically as bad omens, as sign of impending illness or doom or death even. And oftentimes, if you've seen one in your life, you're primed to see another. Personally, I've been seeing shadow men since I was like 4.
If you've ever felt watched or seen something just beyond the light, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. As always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.